Hey everyone, Steven here with Lucky Casts, and today we're going to talk about using method overloading in your Lucky applications to clean up your code. Using method overloads isn't something that's restricted only to Lucky applications. You can use it in any Crystal app. However, we're going to look at it through the lens of Lucky to make things a bit more straightforward and easy to follow along with. To get started, let's look at a simple, minimal example. I've got a user image method that takes in a user, and I want to get a Gravatar image URL for that user. So I might call that in my front end with user image and pass in the current user. However, let's imagine that our application doesn't require a user to be signed in. This means that current user could be either nil or a user. So our compiler would tell us that this isn't a valid method call because a user who's nil doesn't have a method called email address. To get around that, we might do an early return, like return unless user. But if we wanted to handle users that aren't currently signed in, we might do something like this. If we have a user, fetch their Gravatar image. Else, we want to return a placeholder image. And I guess we could actually just call that placeholder image URL. Now our method handles both a user that's nil and a user that is a user who has a valid email address. Now let's take a look at how we can solve this problem with method overloading. Remember that Crystal doesn't require us to put types on every parameter of every function, but it is an option that we have. So here, Crystal is determining at compile time that this user could be either nil or a user, because current user can be either nil or a user. If I want to explicitly state that this method will only take users that are users, I can define the type here, like this. By adding that type, I can no longer ever enter this else statement, so I can remove it. And I can remove the if statement, and now it gets back to its very simple implementation. We're back to our same problem though, which is what about when current user is nil? Well, I can actually copy this method and change the signature such that user, instead of being a user, is nil. Now I can do my same placeholder image URL call, and my code will work whether current user is a user or nil. Now that we've seen a simple example of method overloading, let's look at it in action in Lucky Jumpstart. I have a pretty simple nav bar here with a brand on the left and some actions on the right. So when you're not signed in, you can sign in or sign up. And when you are signed in, you can either visit your profile or sign out. The way this works is in my auth layout, I render the same nav bar that I do for my main layout, which means that whether you're signed in or signed out, the same navbar component is being displayed. How that works is, from within the navbar, I have an optional user, so the question mark at the end here is sort of similar to saying or nil. And as I render this navbar, first I render the left part of the navbar, which is common whether you're a signed in user or a signed out user. It's the logo with a link to the homepage. Then I render the right navbar, and I pass in the user. This could be nil or a regular user. That goes down here and either hits this definition or this definition, which is overloaded to take in a no user parameter to be a little bit more explicit, that's nil. So when I have a user in this navbar, I'm rendering out their email with a link to the show page and a sign out button. When I don't have a user, I'm rendering a sign in button and a sign up button. I do a very similar thing on the responsiveness part of the page, where when you're on a mobile resolution, you get a hamburger menu. Whenever you have a user in the hamburger menu, you have a link home or to sign out. Whenever you don't have a user and you have a hamburger menu, you have a link home to sign in and to sign up. By combining these four methods and overloading two of them, I can have a very simple implementation of the navbar itself. And when I make changes to things like the background color, the shadow, the margin, or the padding, it's reflected for all of my users, and there's no chance of it falling out of sync between whether you're a signed in user or a user that has yet to sign in. Our examples today have barely scratched the surface of what's really possible with method overloading, and I hope that you can think of some other scenarios where you'll want to use it in your own Lucky and Crystal applications. Until next time, this has been Steven with Lucky Casts. Have a great day.